Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Hot Topic Tuesday, Legal Leaders. I'm Zach Sooty. We have Al Fragnoli joining us tonight, as always. Al, very special ugly sweater edition
Yes,
of
sir.
Hot Topic Tuesday.
Got the
So
Sam Adams.
nice looking sweater vest you got there, supporting my hometown, the Pittsburgh area Pirates.
Love
So
it.
Al, wanted to start off with an exciting college football weekend. We had the selection, the playoff selection this weekend. It is set number 1 Alabama, 2 Clemson, 3 Ohio State, 4 Notre Dame. Who do you like to advance and ultimately win it all? And did the selection committee get it right?
Yeah, that's a great question to start it off, Zach. Definitely an exciting college football weekend. A lot of good conference championship games going on. I think they ultimately got it right. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State for sure. I think no doubt. Some people saying maybe Ohio State didn't really deserve it because they only played 6 games, but I don't think that matters. They won all 6 of their games. They won the Big Ten championship. Notre Dame. I believe Notre Dame deserved to get in. I know this has been bounced around quite a bit with a lot of people saying maybe Texas A&M having one loss to Alabama deserved to get in. Some talk about Cincinnati. I believe they were 9-0, 10-0, whatever it was. They won their conference championship. This past weekend as well. They didn't. It wasn't very pretty, but again, it was in a rainstorm, so they won, which ultimately is the only thing that matters. But I think that Notre Dame is the right pick for that 4th spot. I really, really do. A lot of people have said, they got destroyed by Clemson this past weekend with a healthy Trevor Lawrence playing. Had he been playing in the regular season, Ohio State or Notre Dame, I'm sorry, would have lost that game too. I don't know. That's a shoulda, woulda, coulda. We don't really know, right? That's an if scenario. It didn't happen. They played some good competition throughout the year. When you look at their schedule and their resume, they only had one really close game against Louisville, which I think was 12-7. So very low scoring game, but that was it. They played really well against a really good North Carolina team in Chapel Hill. And they dominated their schedule all year. I think they're definitely the 4th best team in the country. When you ask the question of who's going to advance, I think with that being said, they're going to get looked at poorly, unfortunately, after they play Alabama, because I do think they'll probably lose by 4 touchdowns to Alabama. But Alabama is really, really good. I think they ultimately win it all. And I think that Clemson destroys Ohio State. I don't think the semifinal games are close, Zach. I think Alabama and Clemson are a tier above everybody else. And we're going to see another rematch of Alabama and Clemson in the postseason. What are your thoughts?
So, at this, I think they got it right in the top 4 teams. I would love to see the playoff expanded to more teams, but this year, I think you're right. I think why would you expand the teams when it's going to be a blowout in both semifinals? So, does it make it more competitive to include more teams? You have more chance of an upset, possibly. So it's again, one of those years where you just don't know. In years, moving forward, I'd love to see more teams be involved. I'd love to see more of a competition when it comes to the playoff. And this year with 4 teams, it was a difficult season, so hard to predict. But I think you're right. I think Alabama and Clemson probably ultimately meet with Alabama winning. As for the number 4 team, I think you got to put Notre Dame in there. I was rooting for Cincinnati to come out with a blowout win, and maybe Notre Dame get blown out a little more and sneaking in or something, or maybe Texas A&M with sneaking in. I'm always rooting for that. Just huge. I don't want to call it an upset, but an upset in this case. To sneak in that number 4 spot. But I agree. I think Alabama wins it. I think Clemson wins as well. Rooting for Ohio State, though. Like to see them kind of prove some people wrong with, only having a few games played. The 6 games I think they had. So would love to see them. Always rooting for an upset.
Yeah, Zach, you mentioned real quick there, you mentioned an expansion to the postseason. I think this year would have been the year to try it with everything going on. But to your point too, I don't think it would have really mattered. You might have had a chance maybe for an upset going on in there, and it would have been a little more exciting, obviously, to have more teams in the playoff and competing for that playoff spot. But ultimately, I think it's going to be Alabama and Clemson. One thing I can tell you that I won't be doing that you're going to be doing is rooting for Ohio State. That's for sure. So anyway, let's move on to the second question, Zach. NFL playoff race. It's heating up. We're down to the last few weekends here. Again, we have an extension this year with the seventh team instead of six from each conference. What are your thoughts? Do you think there's going to be any changes to the seeding right now with where teams are at? Anybody, going to sneak into the postseason potentially?
I think in the AFC we're going to see some changes. I think my Steelers are just not looking good right now, and for some Steeler fans, it's not a surprise. When we lost that game against the Washington football team, you saw a different Pittsburgh Steelers than the previous 11 games, and even then, a lot of people were saying that they were overrated, and I think that's showing now. Big Ben doesn't look the same. Arm strength doesn't look the same. Accuracy, play calling. There are issues on offense. Defense always looks good, solid, but they could possibly lose the AFC North this year. They could start out 11-0, and at the end of the season here, play the Cleveland Browns and possibly lose the AFC North. They clinched a playoff spot, but again, they could lose the AFC North. I'm calling what I called back in maybe week 4, early in the season. Love to see Steelers in Tampa. Love to see the Steelers they just can't avoid Tom Brady, and then they meet him in the Super Bowl once again. He's ruined so many playoff runs for them. He's met him in the AFC Championship game so many times and beat them. I was hoping that we would see a Steelers Tampa Bay AFC Championship with the Steelers ultimately winning, but I honestly believe it's going to be a KC, Kansas City, and Green Bay Super Bowl with KC winning it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm with you. I think the NFC pretty much holds serve. I don't think there's any shuffling around with teams right now. I think everybody that's lined up 1 through 7 stays 1 through 7. When we shift to the AFC, it's going to be interesting, Zach, because to your point, I didn't think there was any chance really that Pittsburgh, when you start 11-0, might lose the division. But when you look at their remaining schedule, they got the Colts, and I believe it's in Indianapolis this coming weekend, and then they wrap up the season with the Cleveland Browns. And the Browns got the Jets this weekend, so that's going to be a win, most likely. It's going to be interesting because I'm with you. I think that there is a good chance now that Pittsburgh doesn't win that division. Even if they do win the division and they end up with a 2 or 3 seed or 4 seed, whatever it ends up being, I don't think they're going to win their first round playoff game. So it's really interesting to see a team start 11-0 and potentially maybe lose their last 5 games. Or get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. So to me, that's real interesting. When you look at the teams that are currently in, Miami has the last playoff spot right now. What a season they've had. And it's exciting to see the success they've had, first time in a long time. Unfortunately, they got the Buffalo Bills coming up in the last week. And I think there's a chance they lose that game if Buffalo is still battling for the 2 seed. I don't think there's any chance they'll jump Kansas City for that bye. But if that's the case and that game still has seeding implications, I think Buffalo probably wins, and Baltimore is going to win out, in my opinion. And if that's the case, Baltimore is going to jump into that last playoff seed, which I think would be real interesting. And again, it would be unfortunate for the Dolphins and all Miami fans out there because they're having their first good season in a really long time, and to finish 10-6 and not make the postseason is a shame. So that's the only change that I see. The change is coming right now. When we talk Super Bowl, I know everybody is really high on Kansas City, and deservedly so. They're a great team, fantastic lineup. But I just have a feeling that the Buffalo Bills or the Tennessee Titans are going to be one of those teams is going to come out of the AFC. I just have that feeling. They play good, sound team football, offense, defense, special teams, great. And Tennessee, if they get out to a little lead against somebody, they can throw Derrick Henry in there and run 3-4 yards every single play and take a 9-minute drive and run time off that clock. And you need that in the playoffs. So I really like what Tennessee does. And in the NFC, I know Green Bay has some challenges with their offensive line. The defense isn't fantastic, but I think that Green Bay is going to end up in the Super Bowl. And what a story that would be for Aaron Rodgers. Feeling like he's not loved over there as they draft a quarterback this past season. He comes out and is probably going to be the league MVP. So I'm going to say Green Bay and Tennessee are going to be my two teams for the Super Bowl right now. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, and I think Buffalo has more of a chance than Tennessee. So I'm going with a heavy favorite with Kansas City, but Buffalo is playing extremely well, extremely sound football on all sides of the ball. So would not be a surprise to me. Tennessee, like that call, Al, but don't see it happening. So the NBA begins. What are you looking forward to? For me, real quick, I just love seeing the NBA. I love seeing sports start again, picking up, and NBA on Christmas Day is it's just a tradition.
It is a tradition, and they started that a couple of years ago, and I love that. I don't like the whole concept of working on Christmas Day, right? But I know that's but the fact that these athletes and these players are bringing us joy, and there's teams sitting around are competing, and there's families sitting around and watching these games is awesome to see that become a tradition right now, and I think the NBA has done a nice job with that. As you mentioned, it starts tonight. There's a couple games on the schedule. One game going on right now, and then later this evening we got the Clippers and the Lakers, and I think that's a fantastic night one TNT matchup. Both of those teams are projected to have good seasons again, as they have last year and in the last couple of years. There's a lot of thought that these two teams will be competing in the Western Conference Finals potentially this postseason. And, I think that I'm looking forward to just watching that game tonight and seeing some competition going on out there on the court. And it should be an interesting season. Obviously no fans to start in a lot of these arenas and these venues, but to your point, Zach, it's really awesome to see some of these sports start back up again for a new season here. Moving right back into another sport that's going to be starting real soon here. The NHL just announced the other day that they've got a restart date for January the 13th. They're going from an 82-game season down to a 56-game schedule this year. They're looking to play in all home arenas, which is good to see. Probably no fans we're looking at to start the season at least. And there's a realignment of the divisions. And obviously, as we all know, one of the divisions is going to be an all-Canada division to obviously get rid of the travel internationally since there's restrictions between borders here. But, what's your thoughts on the NHL season restarting? You excited to see things happen here pretty soon in another 2 weeks?
Yeah, so Al, I think I'm excited to have the NHL season start. I'm not a big fan of the realignment, but I think you have to modify the season this year with a 56-game season. So looking forward to just having hockey again and competitive hockey. Huge, Penguin fans. So excited to see the team play this season. They mean a lot to the community. I think that's one thing about sports that's so interesting and so impactful is, when they get back to the city, the players get back to the city and what they do for the city and what they do for towns like Pittsburgh, for cities like Pittsburgh, it's important. So the Penguins are a big part of that. So it's nice to see that the season get kicked off again. And I think it's a huge accomplishment to have a 56-game season in the NHL. So Again, playing in the home stadiums, even without fans, is one step closer to normalcy, and looking forward to that. As for who's going to win it all and anything like that, not even thinking that far ahead. Just excited to have a season, and getting back into it, and hopefully for the 2021 season, we'll be beginning on time as we normally would, and playing a full season, and again, things are back to what we knew is normal pre-COVID. What about you, Al?
Yeah, I'm really excited for the NHL season to restart here. I think everybody knows what an avid NHL fan I am. I obviously love all sports here, but when it comes to the NHL playoffs, I think there's nothing better. And you mentioned Zach. Not even though we're not having fans right now to start these seasons, it is exciting to see them back and at least playing in their home arenas. So that is one step closer to normalcy. And hopefully things run smooth. One thing I think we learned from the NHL and the NBA with their postseason when they restarted a couple months ago here is those two organizations did it the right way, and they didn't have any COVID issues whatsoever. So let's hope that the NBA and the NHL still have success this season, and that they don't run into any hiccups with a bunch of games getting canceled and teams running into COVID issues. And if not, who knows? When the postseason starts up in May, June timeframe, maybe there'll be fans in the seats, because there's no better thing than fans being at these courts and these arenas, these fields, being able to cheer on their team, especially when it's the postseason. The energy level that you can hear in these stadiums is fantastic, and I really, really am hoping, especially for the NHL. I think there's something special when you watch Canadian hockey teams and their fans pack those arenas, and they're all wearing the same color uniforms or shirts or whatnot, and they are loud and they love their hockey in Canada. So I'm hoping that there's fans in arenas, within 6 months or so here, and for the postseason, and we'll see what happens. But to your point, it is exciting to at least see some normalcy back with the start of these seasons coming about.
And how great would it be to have fans in the stadium for the first time during the playoffs? I mean, could you imagine that energy level?
That would be intense. There'd be people just falling over seats there. That would be incredibly intense. And real quick too, it seems like the teams we're rooting for are completely different, because you mentioned the Ohio State Buckeyes, and I said I'm not rooting for them. The NHL, you're getting excited for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we all know, as a Detroit Red Wing fan, I'm not going to be rooting for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So it looks like we're cheering on different teams this year.
No different than any other year.
For sure.
So Al, we don't have a common ground when it comes to favorite teams, but we're still friends. We still get along. Can we find a common ground in our top 5 Christmas movies?
I'm going to say no.
So I posed the question now. What are your top 5 Christmas movies?
Yeah, I'm going to say no. So, but we'll see. My top five. The top 3 are very, very simple. 4 and 5, I had to give it some thought, but 1, 2, and 3, hands down. Number 1, Home Alone, first one, classic. Number 2, National Lampoon Christmas Vacation, and number 3, Elf. Those 3 movies, 1, 2, 3, no doubt about it. Number 4, Home Alone 2, and number 5, Santa Claus, the first one.
All right, I have some.
Okay.
So I can't say we can't agree on something.
That's interesting. Okay, all right, Zach, what do you got?
Number 1, Home Alone.
All right.
Number 2, the original Santa Claus.
Okay, all right.
And then I go with the classics: Charlie Brown Christmas, Rudolph, and Frosty.
Okay, very interesting. So,
but Elf was on my side.
Okay.
Number 6. I think there are some Elf, National Lampoons. Those are movies I need to watch every year. but there's something that the classics do just bring back childhood memories that they will never not be important to me. Where I feel as maybe as time goes on, I guess National Lampoons and Elf, they're funny. I enjoy them, but those classics have just a connection with family and tradition.
So I never really watched those, believe it or not, too much when I was a kid. So I think that's probably why it doesn't stick out for me. But, when Home Alone was released, I was 5 or 6 years old. So that really stuck out to me as I started to get older and really was following it. I absolutely love that movie. So if I was 5 or 6, you were probably 26. But so that's probably why, you know, I'm joking with you, Zach. But yeah, those classics I never got big into, but Home Alone, I think there's nothing better than that movie right there. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a
but we do have
classic.
some
It's fun
common
to
ground.
watch.
Absolutely. So that's awesome. But anyway, that kind of wraps it up for our edition tonight. We thank everybody for joining us. Thank you for continuing to support us over the past few months since we've been doing this. Um, we want to wish every single one of you a very Merry Christmas, a very safe, happy holiday season here. And we hope you tune in this Sunday with our special guest right after Christmas here. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing everybody next Tuesday as well.